Welcome to today's session. We're going to be doing several things through the class that involve important elements of our well-being. And you might look to those as we're going through the class, and they involve our strength, our balance, our mobility, and our coordination. So this is yoga after all, so we'll also have relaxation period at the end and an emphasis on breathing. And I think we'll begin. Let's go to our mats. And with this idea of breathing, let's make a particular emphasis on the rib cage and breathing fully. So just to help with the kind of the parts of the body, if you bring your hands up and cup your hands around the bottom of your rib cage, in your stance, be relaxed, shoulders relaxed and soft behind your knees, and then take full inhalation out to the sides of the ribs where your hands are placed, and then full exhalation, still with your shoulders relaxed. And a couple of breaths just to emphasize this part of our lungs and our breathing that we don't often consider. So wide ribs on the inhalation and releasing on the exhalation. So that's the sides of your rib cage. If you bring your hands around to your back and place your hands at your lower ribs, see if you can bring the breath into the back ribs. Now, breathing fully into what is your kidney area of your back as well. Full breath in and full breath out. And you might consider that you can breathe into the side ribs and the back ribs at the same time. And feel that breath full on the inhalation and releasing on the exhalation. And let's do one more emphasis. Interlock your hands, turn your hands inside out, and then bring your hands onto the top of your head. So knuckles touching the crown of your head. On the inhalation, breathe in to lengthen the spine. And breathing out, see if you can find a little bit more stability through your feet. Inhalation, elongating. And exhalation, stabilizing. And then we're going to bring the arms back down. And you might want to close your eyes for this. Once more, release your shoulders, soften the backs of your knees, and continue for several breaths. Wide rib cage into the back ribs, lengthening upwards without losing that length when you exhale, but just feeling a bit more grounded through your feet. And then opening your eyes again if they were closed. And I call that circumferential breathing, so breathing in all directions. I'm not even sure if that's a word, but it sounds like the circumference. Let's take a little time to waken the soles of our feet, our toes, and so forth. And we'll be able to incorporate a balancing pose here. So in your lovely Tadasana position, the elbows slightly relaxed and the knees relaxed. Then lift your toes off the floor, and as you draw them up, like drawing up a drawbridge, and then bringing them back down to the ground. At no point are we clenching the toes, we're just trying to get length there. So all 5 toes, each foot lifting, and then back to the ground. And a few more of those. And then we'll do something that is a little bit more demanding. Maybe have a look down at your toes. They're in a line. Open the toes as wide as you can, space them. And then, like a little Mexican wave, lift your toes from the little toe side to the big toe, and then big toe to the little toe. Big toe, little toe comes up and all the way up, all 5 toes, each foot, and then back down. And then pause for a moment. And what I was doing was, trying to help with my fingers. So if that was something that you were doing too, see if you can now incorporate your fingers at the same time. Maybe that is helpful. So lifting up little toe, little finger, ring toe, ring finger, middle finger, and so on, and thumb, and then big toe down, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, last toe. Do one more round like that with your fingers and your toes, and then just shake out your hands and shake out each foot. I don't know, was that helpful that you were able to emphasize your feet using your fingers? Probably not. Let's take some heel raises. So just move over onto a place where you feel stable. I've moved off from my mat, so I'm just on my carpeted floor. I feel like there's less interface and I can feel my feet a little bit more when I do this. So rising up on the balls of your feet and back down and up and down. Let's see if we can hold it for a breath or two. When you raise the heels, keep the weight towards that big toe side of your foot and back down. Coming up, and there's the weight through the ball of the big toes and back down. I'm noticing as I'm talking, it's a little harder to pay attention and hold the rise. But if you can, then do that. You can also use the help of a wall next to you. And if this comes easily for you, and I hope that it does, you might turn your head to the side when your heels are up. Let's see what happens. I think I'll have to stop talking to be able to do that. That takes so much concentration. And then shake out your feet, like you've got a little bit of mud on them or leaf litter. And then take pause, and let's take one foot in front of the other. So stepping out, not very far, just about a foot distance, and your feet still are separated. They're not like train tracks. And then let's roll forward, lifting the back heel towards the ball of the front foot, and then roll back, lifting the forefoot of the front foot and the back heels down. And then go back and forth between those movements, forward and back, in a slow fashion, so that maybe you start to feel a little bit of the foot bones more individually. And let's see if you can go slowly enough so that at the middle point, you can pause for a moment. It's a little bit like a single heel lift. For my part, when I do this, then there are certain bones that make a bit of noise. And I have to believe that's a good thing. And then let's switch. And feet in a line, and then start taking the opposite foot forward. And maybe having a new experience. So slow movement. Pretty much you're just working through your lower body here. Of course, your ankles come into this, lower leg bones. And then slow the movement right down. So at the middle point, you're in, hopefully, a balancing. Once more, my fingers are trying to help. And then step up and come onto the mat once again if you're off the mat. And let's do a step back with the right foot. When you step back, it's a small step and you're emphasizing the inside of the foot, the ball of the big toe. And then step up. And once more stepping back. We're just avoiding the foot rolling out. So it's more on the inside of your foot. And stepping up. And back. And forward. And opposite leg back. When you step forward this time, we'll take that right leg back and then hinge forward from your hips and come into a gentle lunge. So we're going to bend the back leg and lower the knee towards the floor. I'm resting my hands on my front thigh for balance and then step up. So opposite side. Take a little hinge from your hips forward. Rest your hands onto your thighs if that's helpful. And then lower down, bending the back leg. Step up. You might be able to be free hands this time, not holding the front leg, and stepping back. If you can, come a little lower to the ground. And stepping up. Once more back, opposite leg, and lowering down. We're going to come all the way to the ground this time. And if you need to, for support, bring your hands down as well. And then take that leg and knee back, and you're in cat pose. Let's do a little bit with cat pose for your knees and your hips. Separate your knees a little bit, swing your feet closer together, and ease your buttocks back towards your heels. And in the spirit of warming up the knees like this, and it's not necessary to go all the way back with your buttocks, and then come forward to some work for your wrists, and easing back and forward. And once more, coming back. And in a moment, we're going to take a lying down position on the mat. So, switch your position. Come onto your back with your legs bent. And your arms just loose by your side. Find a place for your feet, your foot placement, where your leg muscles aren't having to work very much. So you might step your feet out a little bit further so the adductors, adductors are kind of loose on the bone, and just pausing there for a moment. You can't see your feet, but now you can feel them because you've worked them from the beginning of the session. So roll your weight in a little bit more to the inside of your feet, the base of the big toe. And then let's do a couple of pelvic tilts. So rolling on the wheel of the sacrum, your hips come towards you, your hips roll away. as your hips come towards you in that posterior tilt, make sure that you're not flattening your lower back. And then we're going to take off and lift the pelvis away from the floor in a small bridge. Turn your hands down so your palms are downwards. And then lift the buttocks off the floor. And emphasizing the breath and exhaling back to ground. Let's use the inhalation to come up and the exhalation down for a few rounds like that. Notice that tendency, I'm feeling it myself, where my weight rolls on my feet outwards. Try to keep them rolling in. And then rest there. We're going to need a few props for today's class, and one of them is a yoga strap. So if you need a moment to get your belt, then let's get hold of a strap. I'm going to take up the belt. I've got it folded a couple of times, but I just want to hold the belt so my hands and my arms are shoulder width distance. And then take the arms straight up towards the ceiling. My arms are perpendicular to the floor. And then press your feet as you've been doing. Tilt your pelvis under and start to do your lift off at the same time as you're taking your arms overhead. Instead of bringing the arms all the way to the floor, keep them lifted slightly, so an inch or two off the floor, and then keep them there as you lower your buttocks back down to the ground. So we're doing a limb stretch with the upper arms, opening up the armpits, and then lift off again. Inhaling, bring the pelvis up again, at the same time as you're extending the arms, and exhale, lower down. So there's a little tug going between the arms stretching back behind you, and when you do your lift off and the pelvis is up, then move the hips towards the knees away from the pelvis. And then finally, let's go to ground and coming all the way down, and the arms coming forward and down too. So you might have experienced, and I felt it in my arms, a little bit of work through the biceps and the triceps. Take the right foot a little forward of the left foot. So now you've got an asymmetrical stance on your feet. Feel the both feet pressing down, and let's do our bridge, lifting the buttocks, and probably a little bit more with the work in the backs of the thighs, the hamstrings, and the lower buttocks. And then come back down. Do that for 2 more times at your own pace. Sometimes what happens here is the muscles they're not used to this, and there's a little bit of cramping. I've been taking my magnesium tablets regularly, and I don't have that cramping to the degree that I did before. Line your feet up in one line again. Pause. Step your left foot forward of your right foot, and then press the both feet to lift off. This side is a little bit more reluctant, you could say. Weight on the inside of your feet and lifting off. And one more round. And completing with the feet in a line again. Let's do a nice stretch. We're going to be doing some um, prone positioned back bends in a little while. And so let's wake up the side of the body. Extend out your right leg. Extend your right arm overhead. So the limbs stretching in opposite directions on the inhalation and releasing on the exhalation. Keep your right foot flexed and push out through the heel, out through the fingertips, and release. And one more of those. And then let it go. Both feet in a line, your arm by your side. Switch, and left leg extends. Left arm extends away from the left leg. Flex that foot, push out, and release. The stretch all the way through the side of your waist, the side of your rib cage, outer hip. And then fold that arm in, fold that leg in. And let's do a hamstring stretch here after tightening the hamstrings as we did. Keep the left leg bent and the left foot on the floor. Bend your right knee into your chest. Link your hands around the back of the leg and extend that leg up towards the ceiling. My hands clasped behind the leg. I'm going to press my hamstrings into my hand and release. Alternately pressure and letting go. Let's say one more time. And as long as you can see your lovely foot now, let's circle the toes, the foot bones, the ankle. And the other way. Maybe flexion in both directions, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. And then let's go second side. And bend your left leg in, grab hold of the thigh behind the leg, and then press. Press out, let go. Just a couple more goes like that. The back of the knee gets a good stretch. And then let's pay attention to the feet again and rotate, turning through the ankles in especially and the other way. And flexing up and down. And then both feet on the floor. All right, let's move to a position close to the wall. We're going to have our feet on the wall and a right angle at the hips and the knees. And it will be in a reclining position. And looks like this. Okay, so you've snuggled into the wall and feet are pressing into the wall. Arms are loose by your side. Notice when you press your feet into the wall, if this is working the same way as it is for me, that brings in a pelvic tilt. Once more, make sure that your lumbar vertebrae aren't pressing to the wall. You can feel this at the sacrum more than the lumbar vertebrae. And press and release. See if at the same time as you press your feet, you can draw up through the abdominal muscles. So from the pubis to the navel. And release. Take a little break. Take pause. When you begin again with that pressure through the soles of your feet, then also see if you can imagine moving the heels towards the floor. So your feet aren't going to move. They press outwards and press downwards towards the floor. So when I do this, I can get a little bit more work through my lower glute muscles too. And alternately, pressure and release. So we're working with strengthening the core muscles in a really safe way. But now experiment, if you like, and you might decide to keep your feet on the wall, with moving your feet an inch or two away from the wall. Now you've got to hold that lift of the legs through the core muscles, pubic bone to navel. And then the same thing, pressing into the wall as though you had the feet onto the wall, but you don't. And letting go. Pressing out and letting go. All right, and then let's give this away and come up to a seated position, still facing the wall. And the pose in Sanskrit is Navasana. I think that's such a nice Sanskrit word because it sounds like the word means the little boat, Navasana, but it sounds like naval, like something about the Navy or something related to the little boat. So bring your feet onto the wall. I've got my legs straight now and supporting myself with my hands behind my buttocks. When I press my hands down, then this lets me lift my sternum, but also lengthens my spine upwards. So pressing the feet into the wall and sitting upright. When I'm supported like this, then my hip flexors are turned off, and that's helpful for me. But if I release my hands and hold the backs of my legs, then they have to work a little bit more. Still in that supported upright position, the sternum is lifted high, shoulders down. And then let's see what we do here when we move away from the wall. So I'm going to bend my legs for this and support the backs of my legs with my hands behind my knees. And then a little release from the wall. Can I still straighten my legs? Just balancing on my sitting bones. So I'm going to keep my legs a little bent because that seems to be a kinder movement for my hip flexors. And balancing in Navasana. And then my legs are tiring, so I'm going to bring my feet down and take a break and just lie on your back. Rest your hands over your navel and then allow the core muscles to be relaxed. All right, and then once you've used your abdominal muscles in anything that involves strength, sometimes they need to be stretched out. So we're going to move on to those prone back bends. So lie down on your mat face down. And rest your head onto your folded arms. With your legs straight back behind you. Do a little shake out of your buttock muscles. That feels like a really lovely thing for my lower back too. And from here, we're going to bring the hands down underneath the shoulders as per cobra pose, Bhujangasana. So bend your elbows, slide your hands back underneath the tips of your shoulders, and just rest your head onto the floor for the time being. Just a really nice beginning of the pose because your body is relatively relaxed and supported. Take your weight onto the inside of your hands, your thumb index finger and the webbing between those two, and bring your elbows in close to your side. To stabilize the lower body, press the pubic bone down and draw the low belly up towards your navel. Lift your hands a little bit off the floor, an inch or so off the floor, and your head is still resting on the floor. I can't do that or I won't be able to speak into the microphone, but your hands are up and then bring them back down to ground. When I do that, I notice that my upper back muscles support that movement, and that would be a really good thing for strengthening the upper back. Hands lift up a little bit, shoulder blades squeeze into the center spine. Finally, hands down, head is still resting. Check your lower body support. Pubis presses down. And then when you lift your hands this time, lift your head a fraction off the floor too. Think of the center chest moving forward, the sternum moving forward, and then take rest again, hands and head down. Finally, we're going to lift up completely. Press your hands strongly into the mat, all 5 fingers spread and supporting. Lift your head and come up any amount that you're able to at the moment, keeping the weight towards the inside of your hands and your elbows in next to your ribs. And then exhale, fold down to the floor. We'll do one more of those. We set ourselves up so well to do the lift. Pubis, low belly, inhaling, coming up. See if you can stay up for a breath or two. Think of that early work that we did with breathing and lengthen through the upper part of your spine to the crown of your head, your center chest forward, and then down to the ground. Fold your arms, rest your forehead onto your hands or turn your head to the side. Give your buttocks a little bit of a shake out again. And we'll move on to Shalabhasana, the locust pose, with your arms by your sides, straight back, elbows straight. Rest on your forehead, chin towards your chest. Draw your shoulders back. And then set up through the lower body. Pubic bone presses, low belly up, drawn up. And then simply lift your head and your chest slightly off the floor. Lift your arms as well, any amount that feels comfortable for you here. You're resting on your diaphragm, so breathe consciously. And if you can, come up a little bit higher, but keep your gaze downward, maybe only to the end of your mat. And exhale to ground. Soften the elbows, relax, and have the head well supported. Let's go for one more time. Inhaling, lifting up. Arms coming up. The arms aren't lifting high, but they're high enough so that we can experiment with rotating the arms. So palms downwards, palms upwards. And keep that movement going. If this is too strong in your shoulders or the elbow rotation, upper arm rotation, then just keep the still movement that you started on the first round. All right, and one more rotation and coming down, and take a little break in, no, we won't take a break at all. Push back into downward, into child's pose. Go slowly as you're moving from back bending to forward bending. So buttocks back towards your heels as much as your knees will allow at the moment. And then instead of
um, having your arms back or elbows resting on the ground. Walk your hands forward, come up onto your fingertips, and then lift your head and your chest. So at the same time as your hips have moved back, we're moving the sternum forward. Keep the head up. You're looking right towards the end of your mat or beyond the mat. Elbows straightening. See if you can get that lovely length of the side body that you established in some early arm stretches. Beautiful. And then walk your hands back. And finally, let's come all the way up to standing for Warrior One standing pose. All right, come forward to the front portion of your mat. And take Tadasana, Samastiti, standing evenly on your feet, well aware of those parts of your feet, the toe bones, your ankles, and standing comfortably and at ease. Remember your earlier breathing, where you were breathing through the upper spine, lengthening up on the inhalation. And then simply bring your hands onto your hips and step your right foot back. And let's have another go at that. Step forward. And perhaps you can take that right leg back a little further this time. Okay, good. So we've got asymmetrical stance, the left leg forward, the right leg back. Let's take the lunge and bending the front leg. Pause. Let's take a little time on working on alignment so that back foot, the toes are facing more or less towards the front edge of your mat. And then bring your arms up straight overhead. When you bring your arms up like this, the bottom rib cage often lifts up and comes forward. So let's bring the arms down again. Rest your hands on your front ribs and then soften the front ribs so they rest more into the top of the abdomen. And then bring your arms up again without that thrust of the ribs forward. And that's beautiful. And then lower your arms, step off the back leg, step right foot to left. Get your balance there. And then let's take left leg back. Step up again. Take it back a little bit further if you know that you can maintain your balance. It's all right to have a shorter stance if you need to. And then that back foot facing more directly forward. Take your lunge and bring the arms forward and up. And now we've got a little bit of control through the diaphragm ribs. Beautiful. And then lowering the arms and step up and right foot back. We're going to have a few goes with this. It's a lovely posture, and get your balance there. And we'll take our deep lunge. So as you have moved into that front leg lunge, draw the thigh bone back into the hip. Doesn't have to be a lot of movement there, but we want to stabilize the front hip by connecting the thigh with the socket. And then from there, let's take goalpost arms with your elbows crooked. See if you can move your elbows back a little bit and feel into the upper part of your back without thrusting the ribs forward. And then lift your sternum, lift your gaze a little bit. Imagine that you've got a spotlight in the front of your chest and you're lifting that light upwards instead of straight forward. And then we're going to lower the chin and step up, right foot to left foot, and left foot back. Lunging on the right leg, there's a nice deep crease at the top of the thigh as you draw the thigh bone back again. And then let's take the arms up and the elbows back. Imagine your hands are pressing against a pane of glass. Lift your spotlight, lift your chin a little bit, lift your gaze, and then let's step forward and both feet together. Let's see. Trikonasana. So take a position where you're facing the long end of your mat and step out more a meter or so distance. Turn your feet to the right. Trikonasana. Get your balance even on your both feet. We've paid particular emphasis, attention to the feet. So feel all 5 toes, the base of the big toe, the heels. And then raise your arms out to the side, stretch to the tips of your fingers, and then do a little lean out. When you take a hinge, this time it's on the side of your hip. So allow that hinging from the right hip, and then bring your right hand down onto your right leg. And instead of bringing the left arm up towards the ceiling, reach behind, crook your elbow, reach your left hand behind the back of your head, and lean back a little bit into your left hand. I think that's a really nice way of opening up that lung on the left side. And pressing your right hand against your right leg, the upper elbow comes back a little bit. And then inhale and come all the way up. Extend your arms out well to the side and give them a little bit of a rest now as you turn your feet to the left. Left foot turns out about 90 degrees. Pause there and then raise your arms once again. Stretch from your shoulders to your finger pads and then do that hinging sideways to the left side. And left hand comes down. Right hand, reach behind, crook your elbow, and rest your hand cupped to the back of your head. Right elbow up, leaning back slightly. And lift your tailbone slightly. That always deepens my movement to the side in this pose. And then up you come. Arms out wide to the side. Turn your feet directly forward. And then happily step into center. Tadasana. Home base. Just welcoming yourself into a steady, quiet Tadasana. All right, let's do just one more standing pose, and that is Warrior Two pose. So I want to step out wide here, turn my feet to the right, and resting your hands onto your hips, take a couple of knee bends. So we're doing right knee bends and straightens, and bending and straightening in a gliding kind of movement. Maybe you can work the pose a little bit more as you bend the leg. Move your knee back slightly and open up that right groin. And then let's take it as a static position. As you bend your right leg, your trunk still directly in the center over the pelvis. Extend the arms out sideways. Look to the right. Extend the elbows straight.
And then feel into the left side. You're still looking to the right, but very much feeling left foot, left arm extension, breathing circumferentially, and then head to center, straight right leg. If you like this time, keep your arms up for your strengthening part of the pose and turn your feet the other way. And let's bend and straighten, flex, nice smooth movement. And then holding that bent leg position, maybe drawing the left knee back slightly at the same time as you draw the left buttock in and looking to that direction to the left, but extending right, solid on your right foot. Good. And then head to center and straight left leg and feet to center and lower your arms and step all the way back in. And I was thinking of moving out of standing poses, but Prasarita Padattanasana, the standing forward fold position, wide leg forward fold, is such a nice completion to a little segment on standing poses. So let's do that and take up a couple of yoga blocks. So for this pose, I'm wide on my mat and the blocks in front of me on the high end. So when I step out wide like this, my legs and my feet always want to turn out. So I'm going to use a bit of control and rather turn my feet in slightly. And then you might, in the spirit of we're working with our feet very much in the beginning, roll from the inner arches to the outer arches, pronating and supinating. Good. You feel that in your feet as well as your knees. And then holding that position with your toes pointing straight forward, then hinge from the top of your thighs and come partially down to the floor, but not all the way. And then come back up again. Keep the knees slightly softening behind them and take your hinge again and come a little deeper into your movement. And back up again. Third time, check that as you hinge, that the abdominal area is lifting away from the floor into the back of your body, and then reach onto those blocks, heel of your hand onto the block. And from here, it's such a lovely movement for the backs of my legs when I feel my hamstrings lifting up. If I lean out slightly, so my weight is even to the forefoot and the heel bones, both feet. Lift your sternum. Again, imagine there's a spotlight there where your sternum is, and you want it to be beginning to lift up and shining forward. All right. And then move the blocks into a lower position if you're ready to lower down. But make sure this works for your own body in forward bending. And keeping that, the sensations in the feet even, big toe to little toe bones, front of the heel. And then if you are ready in the last stage of this, moving the blocks entirely away, drop on your fingertips, or ready to walk your hands back closer to your legs, releasing your head down. As the neck and the crown of the head stretches downwards, lift the abdominal wall upwards.
lift your sitting bones up. Good. Keep the shoulders well away from your ears. And then we could repeat the whole process, bringing the hands forward up onto your fingertips or even onto your blocks again. And then let's move into center position, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. Bend your knees well and unroll all the way up to standing. All right, we're going to move to the wall, and in the way of yoga props, we'll plan ahead, have 2 blankets, and your eye covering for the yoga relaxation, but we're not quite there yet, but have it handy. And I'm going to be using the wall again. So I thought this was a good follow-on from the bridging that we did at the beginning of the class. And it looks a bit like the setup for a shoulder stand using wall support. So I've got my 2 blankets, yoga blankets, and they're folded with the smooth edge facing away from the wall. And maybe I'll just demonstrate this for you. You want an optimum distance from the wall. And you get into this position like you would for legs up the wall, Viparita Karani, except that you've got these blankets here to support your upper spine and your shoulders. So I did my roll on to the blankets, and I've done this before, so I knew what my optimum distance from the wall would be. But you might have to play around with that a little bit. So what we're looking for is to have your buttocks near to the wall, your feet supported onto the wall, and your shoulders supported, but not the back of your neck. So your head and your neck are off the blankets. When you have your legs bent and your feet on the wall, as I've done, you can push into your feet and use the wall like we did earlier in a particular pose to lift the buttocks. And there's your little bridge, but using a different position for it, a different plane for it. So set yourself up well, and then we'll proceed. So I've got my arms by my side with my elbows straight, hands pressed down, feet press into the wall, and then I can do my wall bridge and lift up and back down. So kind of like push-ups, where instead of using your arms, you're using the strength of your legs. Let's say this time you stay in the raised position and perhaps bring your feet up a little bit higher on the wall. And then I can lift my pubic bone and my sacrum a little bit higher too. I've got enough space behind me so I can bring my hands onto my back for support. And there they are. They're resting on my back pelvic rim. If I bring my elbows in closer, I can bring my hands closer to my lower back. And we've done this whole journey and come this far, so it might be possible for you to use just one foot on the wall, other leg comes straight up towards the ceiling, and then testing the water, the other leg. And I could push off here and come into a version of shoulder stand. Or you could stay on the wall and practice just lifting and lengthening the spine. Let's take one more minute here and check your breathing. And it might be quite different because you're inverted. You're in an inversion. So I'm getting ready to come down out of the pose. So first thing I'll do is back to the wall, lift my sacrum, lift my tailbone, and then release my hands. My arms are out to the side again for support as I slowly lower down. And just before my buttocks touch down to the ground, I'm going to push back away from the wall. So I've finished up with my hips elevated. The edge of the blanket is at my back waist now, and shoulders, neck, and head resting on the ground. You could leave your legs or your feet on the wall. It keeps you still in the inverted angle of the posture. Or lower the legs and have the legs folded or in Baddha Konasana. And take several breaths there. It's such a good thing to take pause after you do some poses, and especially if they're a little bit more demanding or unfamiliar, and let your body consolidate and um, build in some understanding of the journey that you've been on, of what you've just done. So in a moment, we're going to move into the yoga relaxation. And before we do, we'll do a releasing twist. So I'm going to stay lying down, but remove the blankets, or remove the blankets and then come back to lying down is probably a better way to put it. So lie your body out. Or is it lay your body out? And then bend your legs. Bring your arms out wide from your shoulders. And let the knees drop to the right side. Look to the left. Reverse. And let's do that one more time. The legs are relatively close in. And then let's deepen that rotation. Lift your both feet off the floor. Bring your knees towards your chest. Take your knees towards the right side. See if you can keep your thighs close in towards your ribs. And I'm not going to go all the way to the floor because I don't want the opposite shoulder to lift up. And then crossing the thighs towards the opposite side. Look away and not quite to the floor. Once more each side. Left shoulder blade pressing down as my knees move to the right. And the reverse. Thighs together, thighs close to you. And then finally, both feet on the floor and arms by the side of the body. All right, and then bring in the props that you need for being maximally comfortable in Shavasana. For me, that's a folded blanket for my head and my neck. If you have your bolster there, it could be a lovely addition for underneath the backs of your legs. And I don't have my eye covering here, but an eye bag or a soft cloth over your eyes is a good addition. And without committing yourself fully to whatever position you've got in thus far, do a little kind of tidying up. Um, what I like to do is to rock a little bit hip to hip, just shake my buttocks out, and then see if I can land towards the middle of my sacrum, where my weight rests onto my sacrum. And same thing with the shoulders. You can shake your shoulders out a little bit and have the shoulder blades rest on the mat so the weight is as much as you can even on the both shoulder blades. I want to create a little space between my upper arms and my upper ribs. And then for the sake of a little research, turn your palms down and feel that sensation in your shoulders and your upper arms. And then turn your palms completely upwards, so your thumbs towards the floor. And then find the place that for you is comfortable for your arms and your shoulders. And wherever you've landed in that position, soften your hands and your fingers. And withdraw some of the energy from your elbows, so the crease of your elbows is a little deeper, softer. And where your legs are supported and rest on the mat, allow your feet and your legs, your knees to roll out, your hips to roll out. Feel well supported through the back body. And then yield the weight of your body to your props, to the floor, to the earth. Just let go. As you've taken care to release and relax the physical body, send yourself the message that there's no more to do. You can let go of any effort. And give yourself over to being quiet, introspective. As we've been quiet for this last little while and enjoyed some respite from our everyday activities, we don't want to disturb that. We're in no way hurrying to move on. Make some little movements with your hands and your feet if you like. Just rolling your head side to side. And when you do feel the inclination to move again, just roll over onto one side and stay there for a little while longer. Indulge in that side lying position, kind of fetal position. As though you had all the time in the world. And eventually coming up to have a seat in a way that's comfortable and supported for you. And in our ritual way of finishing a practice, bringing your hands together in front of your chest and feeling into that area, the heart center, and the warmth of your own heart, something we cultivate through doing yoga practice. Namaste, and thank you for practicing with me today.